Welcome back, sixth graders. Now that you are done drawing and you have a simplified image, it's time to do the paint. If you have crayons at your house, go ahead and use those. If you have markers, use those. And if you have paint, that's my preference and it's not necessary. If you're going to be using crayons, in order to get your light and dark values, you're just going to press harder and lighter. Please watch your line direction. So as you're moving your crayon, make sure that when you're coloring your background, you're going back and forth like this, and not like this and like this and like this, and trying to color a whole space. A lot of the pop art movement, it was just really flat shapes, and so we just went from doing something 3D with perspective, and now we're going totally flat, just using shapes. So we were using form, now we're using flat shapes. It's just a different style of making art. So line direction is important to keep things looking flat. My preference is always paint. If you don't want to use crayons, you can always use markers, but if you use markers, you're going to have to include yellow in your color scheme, simply because you can't get white out of a marker and you can't color lightly with a marker. So in order to color in all these shapes, you'll have to have a light area in order to create contrast, in order to create opposites. So any color scheme that I'm choosing right now, I need to have light and dark, whether I do that with a crayon, whether I do that with a marker, or whether I do it with paint. So I'm going to break down the color schemes for you right now. One color scheme that you could use if you're painting, and I like tempera paint because it's a flat paint, and acrylic paint I like for other things, not necessarily for this assignment. However, go for it if you have it, and a lot of you are really good with acrylic paint, so go for it. This would be my paint palette for using secondary colors. So I've got my 3 secondary colors, and I have my white in order to make some areas lighter. If you're using analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So what I did is I chose 4 colors, and this is this is one section of a color wheel. In order to finish it off, green, blue, would be included here, but I don't want green and blue, so I'm choosing 4 colors to make it analogous, and I'll be using these in the piece again with white. The other color scheme that you could do with analogous, and one that I love, would be the red, the orange, the yellow, and green. You could do instead a green, an orange, a yellow, a green, and a blue. So just 4 colors that are next to each other on a color wheel is what we're going for. Primary color scheme looks like this. So here's my primary colors. You wouldn't necessarily have to add white, but I really do like the white with the primary color scheme. And every color scheme you choose is going to give a different feel. Primary colors feel kind of a little bit more elementary. You add white, it becomes a little bit more sophisticated. The secondary colors are somehow, to me, look a little bit more natural than the primary colors. The primary colors feel a little bright. So every color scheme that you choose is going to be different. And one of my favorites is complementary colors. And if you were in class, we would for sure be doing this, because I think experimenting with complementary colors is very sophisticated. And so I highly recommend it for you that are looking for a little bit of a challenge. I'll show you what mine looks like in a second. And then the black and white color scheme. And this seems simple, but guess what? You have to create a lot of grays, and it can get complicated. When you mix your puddles of color, you want to make sure that you're really consistent too, that they don't dry out and you're constantly remixing, because you'll get lots of different grays, which can look kind of confusing. So if I'm going to do my chocolate in like a light gray, you better keep it light gray, have enough to paint all of your chocolate so it doesn't look like dark, medium, light, strips in there, because it's not going to make sense to the viewer. So keeping things solid and simple is actually a little bit of a challenge. So let me show you some examples that I've done. I have painted my Caribou coffee before because I love it so much. And so this is what it looked like when it was done. And this is my monochromatic scheme. So this is another one of my favorites. Let me grab my paint over here. So I used, for my monochromatic scheme, I used black and white, and then I added turquoise to it, which I loved. So black and white, and then added turquoise, and this is what I got. What I like about what I've done here is, like I said, all of my chocolate looks consistent. I have nice shifts of contrast in different areas, it would have been a very poor idea to paint this color, the color of this turquoise, and then paint the background very similar, like to paint it that color. You wouldn't have been able to see it. So it's important here to create contrast so you can see those simple shapes. Another thing to pay attention to is I wrote in the instructions that we're looking for crisp, clean lines. What I mean by that is you want to have these edges looking nice and crisp. That means having enough paint on your paintbrush, not having it get dry as you're making that line, because a line is going to look choppy when you do that. And please, no matter how you start, would you please start with the background first? Please start with the background first. So have a plan. I knew I was going to go light with this. Have a plan. Then you can paint over the top of the background. That's really the best way to go. If I was going to paint on here, I would really want to make enough of a puddle, which I haven't done in my demonstration here. I'm going to grab some more. This is definitely not enough puddle over here, not enough puddle to paint the whole background, so be aware of that. And when I go to paint, I'm going to just watch my line direction. You don't have to go up and down. It's just what I like to do. And then when I go to paint and I overlap my caribou cup, I'm not going to freak out. It doesn't matter, because guess what? When this background is dry, I'm going to go over the top of this, and I'm going to then, we're going to pretend that my background is all dry. I have my background all completed. I'll get my brush cleaned and ready to go, and I can create a nice sharp line like this. My brush is starting to dry out. I grab more paint and create a nice crisp line. Then from there, I can go ahead and paint this again using consistent line direction, and I like that up and down feeling. I feel like it makes my painting be tall, and so I'm going to continue with that. Then when I'm done doing this and going around, I would probably use a smaller brush in this area, and you can see now how my paint lines kind of look crooked, and so I just go back and I clean them up, and now I've got consistent line direction. It's really important as you go around, and I guess I would outline all of my images first like this, especially if you're using paint. Get a nice outline on there, and like I said, probably using a smaller brush in these areas, but sometimes I like to use this kind of a brush. I like a flat brush for this. So again, my line direction looks all swoopy. When I go back, I'm just going to gently go like this and clean up my line direction, and now it looks more consistent and flat. That's such an important part. Background first, clean lines, so outlining all of our details, and then going back and making our brush strokes feel consistent. That's really, if you were in class, we would be working together a lot on this, and I'd be, walking around and helping you make sure that we do that. You can keep on layering with paint, so it doesn't matter, like how many layers you put down. If you're just trying to, oh, that looks a little crooked, grab some paint, go back over it, that's fine. Just make sure it's the same color. This paper that I'm using right now is really thin, and it could curl, so you can always tape down the back onto something, or get a thicker sheet of paper. This is just computer paper that I'm working on, so it's up for you to decide. All right, let me show you a couple more things. So I've done this before, like I said, with lots of other things. So this is my niece, like I had showed you earlier. So what I did is pop art pieces, especially Andy Warhol did a lot of repeating images, and so this is my example of repeating her. This is my black and white version of my niece Lexi, and you can see that I use contrast all over, crisp lines. I did my background first, I overlapped the top. And this is complementary colors, so this is actually orange and blue together, and then I added the white, and I love what happens when you mix orange and blue together, because you get this calmer kind of like browny orange, or this kind of brown blue, and this feels like the Hawks color to me, so I love it. And you don't have to love it, but this is what a complementary color scheme can look like, and I wanted you to see what that feels like. So for my first one, I did my black and white, and my second one, I did my complementary color scheme, adding the white in there. So I just want you to see, this is the monochromatic one, like I said earlier. This is black and white, and then I added turquoise. So now you can see a few of the options of your possibilities. I hope you enjoy painting and adding color, or coloring and adding color. Take your time, watch your line direction, nice sharp edges. Thanks for watching, friends. I hope to see you soon. Bye.